Then the refreshments have arrived. Just sort of a check-in with that. Hypothetical scenario just on the ethics of using learning analytics and that for you. And then just sort of in the end inviting some of the Do-It-AT colleagues to talk about future directions and future questions that learning analytics should address. So since we are sort of a smaller group today, if we could start off with your name, what department or school you're in, and also what you'd like to know more about. Who would like to begin?
Andrew would.
Okay. Actually?
Andrew, go for it.
Sure. So I'm Andrew Turner. I'm part of the Learning UW management team, which is in Do It Academic Technology. I do some work with learning analytics, specifically with the tools that I support, and I guess I am interested to know about what other tools people use, and what kinds of questions they have, and what kinds of things they would like to learn about their students using learning analytics.
Awesome, thanks. Kenny?
Kenny, I'm a grad student in the kinesiology department, and it feels like I've been to a few of these labs on learning analytics, and we've kind of been told to be wary of what Canvas is currently offering. So I'm also interested in other tools people might be using, or what can we do within Canvas to make it a little more useful for us.
Do you think it's useless?
Not super, but I mean, it feels like right now we're just getting, page views and participations.
Okay.
What do I do with that?
Cool. All right. Awesome. Lauren.
I'm Lauren. I do language stuff. I also have come to many of these on analytics, and I'm still trying to figure out where and how I'm going to use that information in a effective way. So.
Cool. Bob.
I'm Bob Batt. I'm an associate professor at the business school.
Okay.
Just looking for ways to improve the class.
Awesome.
Classes.
Is this your first lab?
Yeah.
Awesome. Welcome.
Thank you. That was great.
Hi, I'm Carrie Jordan. I'm with Do-It-AT, and I actually support our learning analytics projects and efforts on campus.
James McKay. I'm on the Learning UW team as a consultant, and also been involved in learning analytics initiatives on campus for about the past 6 years.
Okay. Awesome.
Greg Connick, I'm also from Do It Academic Technology. I have our online course production and media production services, and this is just an area that I feel like I need to be better informed with, so I continue to show up at things that can help me be a little bit better informed.
I'm Margaret. I'm a student at the iSchool, and I'm here working with JT and with John in the active teaching lab.
I'm John. I'm from the Do It Academic Technology as well, and happy to be back here on this end of things.
I'm Nazan. I'm from integrative biology. I'm a occasional participant. I really don't know much about learning analytics, so I'm here to absorb as much as I can. I help with our department's online courses, especially fall things summer. So I think this could be helpful for me to know so that I can let others know what they can do.
My name's AJ. I work in Do It Academic Technology for ITA, Information Technology Academy. And similar to some people, I'm just kind of like thinking about how I'm going to use this, if I'm going to use it. I'm also particularly interested in like students and their privacy and their data and stuff like that.
I'm Jessica. I teach in biological systems engineering, and I'm especially interested in the context of developing an online course.
Okay.
So how might I use that differently in the face-to-face classes I'm used to versus online?
For AJ and Jessica, just for what I'm hearing so far, do you think there's a distinction between analytics at the purely online level and in a face-to-face?
I guess I was kind of thinking
the use of analytics as being different, or?
I was only thinking about it online, but
okay.
I think I was thinking narrowly. So.
Okay.
So my name is Mary, and I'm a faculty assistant at the Department of Psychology, and I'm teaching a Comp B course that's also a blended course this semester. So I'm really interested in whether there's some tricks of using Canvas for students to improve their performance.
Awesome. Okay. Welcome. All right. So it sounds like we have a mix of instructionalist faculty, technical faculty, and we can't forget Cliff, who's our resident Canvas.
Cliff Cunningham, work with the Learning UW team. My issue is just making sure that I have an exhaustive list of where we can point people, because I
there are times with the initiative coming out of Kari's group, with what Canvas currently offers, with the assignment or course analytics versus individual assignment analytics. I'm just trying to make sure I understand all those objects so that when I talk to people, I can keep them all sorted. And if there's other third-party tools people are using, that's like awesome, but a little freaky for me. So yeah, let's find out what they are.
All right, sounds good. So because we kind of have a mixed group, I want to start off with the definition of learning analytics that's been offered by the UW-Madison Learning Analytics Roadmap Committee. It's an undertaking of activities that generate actionable data from the learning environment intended to improve student outcomes by informing structure, content delivery, or support of the learning environment. And so far we've already discussed in 3 different ways, I think, a blended environment. Mary, in your instance, Jessica and AJ sort of focusing on an online iteration, and as well sort of face-to-face environments are equally as positive. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to think about these questions with your table mate and share when you're ready. So what are some of the examples that you already collect from students? So it's examples of data that you already collect. When and how are you collecting this data? Is it online every single day, or is it once a week? How do you, as the instructor or instructor-adjacent faculty member, analyze, parse, and examine the data, and for what purpose? Is it predictive, so to anticipate a design element for a future business course, or is it a way to adapt to the changing landscape of the biology course that you're currently teaching? So I'll give you a few minutes to think about those questions, and then we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that. And if you're ready to just get chatting, let's think first. And then,
Kenny's a real teacher. I mean, not that you're not a real teacher. You're a good man. Kenny, all eyes are on you. All right, Kenny. Oh, it's you.
It's repetitive, just whether they are assignment on time or like I know that happens. This is a data
like 20 minutes on quiz, or
that's a page open doesn't mean they're doing something. I think some of them also know, like, I can see how long they spend on a quiz.
Right.
You know, I have my suspicions of the wrong way doing the work, but they know it out.
But how do you think predictive accurate data was?
I really can't. I'm not like, how would you? I don't really care how.
Does it matter?
No. Sometimes my suspicion is like,
their soup or something.
I have students who are like, how did you magically do so well in this assignment?
Done. You haven't even opened the page, right?
Exactly.
Straight up
So
from
then like, the only tool I have is to like go mostly just makes me I don't check those things. I just know that they're there. I mean, I check those things.
Yeah, I also don't. Since you can download all the docs into your own Canvas, which if you like study with the especially if you have already then it does not represent the time spent on studying.
Well, that's what I want to do. It's just, what are we shooting? And is there a general consensus that we really need to have up front? We're learning the most from how they provide, how is that decided? Maybe they're working on it, or are they going to have trouble there?
It's really hard because, like I was saying, To just say,
What are some
Yeah,
of the ways
yeah. Okay, so one of the things that you love
did this behaviors?
How's that? So that makes me
They're all new, but to us they're new.
My
So-
most reliable thing.
And that's
I think it feels like there's
I
like
use
a
student
lot
buses
of-
more than I
I'm interested in writing.
I mean, I guess some duration, like my course.
I'm hoping that I'm hoping
How they're actually, I could really like dive into like sand and like really start to pick it out. So I could feel that
what's there.
Right.
I could
Are you doing those,
I do feel like if they have
No,
more
like
structure
for the course, like stuff I've listened to, so this here's what I want you to get out of it. I would like to be able to go through and pick those out.
Maybe I can find out.
You are aware that that's, I was wondering where the whole master class is gonna be.
I feel like that's what I've done with like scenes, but it also feels like it could go a lot of and no one knows before these local instructors.
it's not as
Often it's the case. Often it's the case that the instructor knows the most about the course. Maybe 75% of the time.
I think another cool one in our class
And
is
like, why are we all I need logging in? And
yeah, that can be another thing that you can use.
where they are in?
Yeah. Like they present
Maybe I
so
was
much.
before too much.
It's like the instructor will use like in our classes that they're sitting in groups and they have information and they're really can write down.
Yeah, so when I'm reading, I know what I'm reading. There's a
Another thing is that
it's the ones when I just
I would say like just off of this, it'd be nice to be able to parse out like what are they actually doing on what is
Not a full amount on there, I don't care, it doesn't change their behavior.
Right.
They know I want that, just like,
So then you're, yeah.
it doesn't matter to them.
When you yeah, we're doing that.
It's sad because I probably think I'm still going to pass the course anyway. I'm still going to do the work and maybe take the exam. So I can online shop and not get enough. It's really sad. I mean, it's sad to say that. But it's stuff like that.
It's just like a naval student. I feel like I expect them to be more tech savvy than me, students now, and they're not. Yeah, and I don't understand it.
I'm also a TA. I'm also a graphics student.
Right, that's
It's hard to make it work.
Yeah, in our class we have a specific section.
All right, so I think we can probably get back into our smaller, larger group, actually. Can I take one and pass that around?
Thanks, JT.
There we go. Take one and pass that around. So in some of the discussions that I was able to hear, a lot of the information that I guess was being shared is, we can get certain data points, but what do we necessarily do with them? Jessica and Mary, would you mind sharing sort of the conundrum that you're facing in your course?
Oh, some of the easiest data available, sort of page views or time spent on assignments, but what
From
is
your
that?
perspective as the instructor, from your perspective as the instructor, what's the challenge
From my
with that?
perspective, how do I know they're actually looking, engaging with it, or just have the browser open, or what That's not actionable data for me.
Okay.
It's data, but there's nothing I can really do with that with any reliability.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
In my personal opinion.
I think we're definitely going to get to the point of it being actionable. It's one of the things I struggle with too.
Yeah.
And I think, who was it that mentioned the privacy concerns? AJ, about what kind of data are you collecting out of your ITA programs? And what do you do with it?
Yeah, not much in terms of that kind of privacy. I'm just saying, part of our discussion, I was saying too, like we have a pretty small student body, so
Okay.
most of the data is not this kind of system report kind of
Okay.
thing. It's more an actual survey or just like a conversation.
Sure, that's
Gotcha.
still big.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. But that's easy because it's manageable because it's a small student body,
Right.
relatively speaking.
Mhm.
But what I'm worried about, where I try to keep focused is eventually our students become college students.
Right.
My kids will too. Maybe I will someday again. And it's like, what kind of things are we collecting
Mhm.
as we start talking about like the digital student ecosystem?
Yeah, and who's housing that?
Who owns it? What are they using it for?
And it's interesting that you mentioned a survey, which is something I assume that you and your group have created.
Yeah.
And then, but Kenny was having a different conundrum of what data do I need to collect? Or it was, how do I know what I need when I need it?
Yeah, it's kind of like, I mean, we have all these data points. You got everything in your grade book. You got the analytics off of Canvas. But, you know, how do those mesh, and what of those things do I actually need or want? So,
To make it actionable, which is what
Right.
it's adjusted for. All right, I was wondering if you could address the origin of this document,
Yes, I would be happy to.
if you don't mind, please. I think everyone has a copy of it. Yep.
So, one of the programs that Academic Technology runs are fellowship programs where we get instructors and instructional staff in on a regular basis, like for a semester-long program, to talk about a problem or a question or an issue that's maybe just kind of newer to campus. And 2 springs ago, we had a fellowship on evidence-based teaching. And we looked at a paper that had this taxonomy of different types of learning analytics. And we basically pared it down. It came out of a paper that was from a couple of Australian publishers that actually use machine learning techniques and stuff that is way beyond what I can explain to you, even if I had a lot of time. There is stuff on the website and the there, but basically what the fellows did and what they found really helpful, what we've been continuing to do is just talk about these six basic different approaches that we like to think about. So a few years ago, like you said, learning analytics, people would think it was all predictive learning analytics. I want to see if my student is not likely to succeed, and do I need to do something in the first couple weeks of class? Do I need to reach out? So really kind of broadening the landscape and realize that a lot of what you do as instructors right now can be considered learning analytics. So Bob was just talking about how he uses a pre-class survey based on a reading, and then he'll use it to report back out to the class and then focus his topics on the areas that the students needed to focus on. So that would be maybe individualized learning. He's kind of customizing his training. He's also doing some, he's accessing their learning behavior. So there's different things that you can do with learning analytics. So this document just gives you an example, a definition for each of these, and then also talks about the questions that this data might help answer. So we also like to just really, be really clear that we don't want to capture data just for data's sake. It should be actionable. We also consider learning analytics on campus to be course level, so the instructor has control over it, and it really should be, what questions do I have, and is there data that can help me answer it?
Awesome.
So that's kind of the high level. But
So as this is getting now socialized out on campus, how, like, I'm sure you were just discussing how you sought out from faculty what they wanted, but as you're now kind of getting this out there, how, like, do you have like a satisfaction ratio yet, or a percentage of just people look at it and say, that's good, that's what I'm looking for, mostly that's great, or are they kind of saying, oh, but I need this weird,
It's sort of similar to Kenny's.
yeah.
You might need something more, but
So how are you finding it received?
well, this is just a little tiny step in our cultural growth and understanding about learning analytics.
Sure.
Yes, learning analytics is a change effort, and it does include technology. And so we're actually in the process of kind of building some infrastructure so that we can have more tools.
Okay.
Because we do hear from instructors, oh, Canvas analytics, maybe it doesn't give me what I want, or it's not enough, or I want more, I want stuff aggregated. Yeah, this is just a little tiny piece of it. We used this last semester. We asked the fellows to think about, like, their teaching strategies already and think about how they either were using learning analytics, just kind of as a reflective thing. Are you already doing some analytics, or are there some things you want to try with your class? And so they were some use cases that were also really interesting. I didn't bring any of them downstairs, but it just kind of helps to think about it and reflect on different ways that you might use it that could support students better.
And then speaking of some of the, I guess, the tools and the new features, if for those of you that actually that have your computer, if you could log into the Canvas site, that's at the address is at the top of your activity sheet. There's a quiz that I created that's the hardest quiz you'll ever take, but it's going to help us see some of the newer features of Canvas Analytics, just to sort of demo those. And if there's one person that could get the wrong answer, that would be great. And if one person that could take a really long time to get the right answer, that would be great. So as soon as you get into the Active Teaching Lab Sandbox, you can select quizzes from the left-hand navigation pane in the new analytics quiz, Spring 2020. I'll give you a few minutes for this grueling. If you're having any trouble accessing that, please let me know. Has everyone passed? Taking the quiz?
Should I? You want me to wait? You said you wanted
No,
to
go ahead and take it now.
But to be
Get it.
slow in getting the right answer, or okay?
If that's what you want to do.
Okay, I was slow.
All right, have we all blown the curve or bombed it?
It was a hard quiz.
And in the meantime, I'll just take the opportunity to remind you as well, for those of you that are new to the Active Teaching Lab, on the Canvas site, we have the electronic copy of this activity sheet where you can link to all the resources that we have. As John always mentions, the paper copy, all the links are broken, everything is alive and well on the digital version. So looking at our sandbox again, if you see over there on the far right side, you see a new tab for new analytics. And Cliff, you're going to be my wingman on this one, okay?
Okay.
All right. So we have a tab for new analytics, and this is for some of you that are just sort of getting new into this. Clicking on new analytics will allow you to see some of the weekly online activity. And Mary and Jessica, this is something you mentioned, page views, participations, et cetera, et cetera. So you can see everyone who's logged into the Active Teaching Lab Sandbox page. But because I just gave you a quiz, I want to find out some more data about this particular quiz itself. And so because it's a course grade and I've assigned it as a grade, going here, we'll see the new analytics quiz. So far, so good? Just as an introduction, if I'm losing anyone, please let me know. Okay.
So you're only seeing this because you're the instructor and we're not seeing
Right,
it because
exactly. So I'm the instructor of the course, so put myself in the position of just the teacher. So seeing this quiz, I can see, either the curve is, blown by one person, or there's a lot going on, or everyone's just very, very smart. Some of the options that you can have in this instance, you can message students who maybe have not completed the quiz, or Cliff, what's up?
No, keep going. I actually saw a request about this just this week.
As a way, you can message students who haven't completed the quiz, or they bombed it, or they took 5 or 6 hours to complete this one question quiz. Was there a technical difficulty that you encountered that you might want to address? But from my perspective, just as someone who's getting into Canvas new analytics myself, I don't necessarily think that this is the most satisfying array of information that you can necessarily receive. And so some digging that I did on my own, I found out that going back to the assignment itself, opening that back up, gives you a whole host of, and I can go back through that again. Clicking on that assignment, the nuts and bolts of the assignment, and then clicking again specifically on quiz statistics, gives you a whole host of different information that is a little bit more relevant and a little bit, I think, perhaps more informative about the way your students are performing. So here I can tell that 5 respondents answered the correct question. I have a few maybes that are a 9. You can also see that the average time on the quiz Somehow 2 minutes and 3 seconds, that might have been because of Cliff. Just to see some of that information. Bob, are you okay? Yes.
So
And I am not an expert in this. This was all
I guess
my
maybe I'll
self-discovery.
I guess
So
my biggest complaint with this is that
Okay.
when you make formula-based questions, the statistics don't work when you have formula-based questions. I think like it just doesn't.
And that the
Can you
question type called.
Yeah, so
the-
like if
the
you
quiz
make
question
one,
type.
essentially like if you have like some mathematical problem, you can put in, you know, each, like you just put in like an X, which that X is, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, like randomly. And when you look at the analytics of that question, like
Okay.
it won't break down for you like what % got it correct. It just said like everyone answered, like everyone didn't.
Oh,
like, it
so in
just,
terms of like completion versus the
yeah, so
whether
it
the
tells you
content
how
was
many
correct?
completed it, but it doesn't say like what, you know, like on a normal question, right? It tells you like how many answered.
Sure.
But I think, I guess because everyone's answer is different, it like doesn't.
Well, let's see. Maybe if I click on.
So then like I have to go through and like manually like figure out, because I like to know like, okay, what was the most missed question on the homework? But
Sure.
if a lot of them are formula questions, I have to figure out like
Really?
which one was most missed. Or maybe I'm just like completely missing something.
No,
but
no,
I really
and that's
tried.
fine. That may very well be. I'm kind of surprised if it doesn't, but that's. I
Yeah.
shouldn't be.
Would that not be because the formula-based questions, because there are different ways of doing formulas to get the right answer?
So like there could be 10 right answers,
Okay.
but still, even if say there's 10 right answers, did 80% of the students get a right answer, or
So these would be like multiple.
Yeah, so like
multiple
essentially-
answer questions.
you know, say there's 10 possible questions, so a student got 1 of 10 questions presented to them. I mean, it's all the same like wording, it's just a number is different. So like, you know, student A, their correct answer might be 1, and student B's correct answer might be 3.
I see.
So, you know, student A and student B both got it right, but when I look at the analytics, I can't tell
You can't
that.
tell.
It just says that like student A and student B
So,
answered the question.
all right, and so can I clarify? This is when you've created a Canvas quiz, you've used a question group.
No, it's called like a formula based, like it's the type of question is a formula
Okay.
question.
Okay.
And then to circle back to the original
Sorry,
comment that
I
you
kind of
made.
like-
And I also want to clarify: is that a Canvas quiz or
Yeah,
is
yeah,
it
yeah, in a
an
Canvas
atomics
quiz.
assessment quiz?
Nope, it's
It's in
Canvas.
Canvas. Okay. That's. I do know there are those question types that I've not really dealt with, and there
Yeah.
it is called formula question. Formula question.
Yeah. Yep.
And I wanted to circle back to the original definition that we discussed about whether or not this data is actionable. What would you do? So you're looking for the specific information about whether or not students are giving certain types of responses. For you, in your case, what type of action would come from that data?
So I pick the most missed homework question
Okay.
and touch on it in class.
Okay.
Like, you know, whatever students had the most trouble with, I go over that. And so I want to be able to easily know which was most missed, but it's like, it's a lot of work now to figure out which was the most missed. I'm just being lazy. I want it to be easy.
I don't think you're being lazy at all.
It's
It seems like, you
Yeah.
know, either regardless of the question, they either got it right or they got it wrong.
Yeah.
And it should be telling you.
It doesn't. Yeah.
So that's
It's
really
bizarre. Yeah.
weird.
I don't know.
That's interesting. Well, thanks for bringing that to our attention because that.
Yeah, hopefully there's a workaround.
Yeah, someone finds a solution.
I mean,
I'd like to
I
know.
thought of a workaround. You could just, like, your final question could say, which question would you like to discuss in class? So then it's more of a survey.
No, like which one would they rather do? It's not really, I don't know if that's always correlated with how well they
Correct.
do though, but yeah.
It's just a quick workaround. I
Which
thought
one do you
of.
think you got wrong?
No, thank you.
John, do you have a question?
No. I guess one question that I have is for like paragraph-based answers that the instructor has to go in and label correct or incorrect. These statistics probably aren't useful until after you've gone through and corrected things.
Yeah.
But even then, does it show?
It tells you like, for like a short answer question, it'll say like, you know, so many students were in like the top bracket of scores, so many students were like in the middle bracket, and so many students were in the lower bracket.
Okay.
So like that's helpful to me. Like even if
Yeah.
I don't know what they answered, I still know like, oh, I had a lot of students like lower on this question.
Yeah.
Actionable, I can do something.
Right, awesome.
But I mean, it would in theory tell you that someone has not submitted.
Right.
So if you have a large percentage of individuals not submitting, that hopefully that sends up a red flag. I don't know if it would tell you how much time was spent on the short answer. Not that that necessarily is relevant. I don't know if that's relevant information, but
So when you look at, is there a rollover on that talks about sort of, there's no, all right, I'm wondering if there are any, yeah.
this tells me
anything about average time.
the individuals who successfully passed.
But nothing about the time.
So if you go into
It
like
says
each individual student, you can see how long they took.
You know, that is a great question. I think you.
You can. If you go like into the speed grader.
This is the,
Sorry.
there's so many routes to get to data, and I can't keep track of where all the routes are.
So if you're in the speed grader, you can see like each student's submission, and on
then
each
I have to look at
student's
all.
submission,
Yeah.
you can.
Unfortunately, there's 500 people in this course.
Yeah. So.
If you click on individual.
So you can see what their.
Breakdown for question by question?
There's a way for you to see each of them.
Time, less than 1 minute. It's listed right down there.
Where do you see that?
There's times.
Right on the bottom. Yeah, right.
Less than 1 minute.
Less than 1 minute, so it's time. But yes.
And that was I think that was for me. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
for whomever.
If you go to Gradebook, you can go to someone's speech if you wanted to do that.
Okay.
There's a way to like get into it.
So just, I'm looking at that formula question that I've never seen it before.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about possible ways to work around, since at least right now, you don't have the analytics you're
I love
looking
the
for.
formula question though.
Right, no, using the formula question, ways to work around your issue of not
Yeah.
knowing. And it looks like students can get feedback for right or wrong answers. Are they getting immediate feedback when they answer a question so that they know if they got it right or wrong?
Sometimes I give them like hints, so they get multiple attempts.
Okay.
And so some questions have more feedback than others. So I can, yeah, I guess you can see.
Well, the reason I'm asking that is because maybe at the end, your last question could be a different kind of question, not a formula question, where you ask them which formulas did you have the most trouble with, and then you'll get that information to be able to address it.
Yeah. I know.
It's not clean, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know how long your quizzes are, and
I can just go through and like sort them manually. It's just like, it just seems like.
it should be able to do that. But yeah, I'm looking at this question. I can also see from the back end why that is awkward and like that, because you can have, you know, with it plugging in whatever number.
Yeah. I mean, it still knows how many marked right and wrong.
John?
Right.
Or JT? Could you go to the quiz statistics button?
I don't know.
Just real quick.
I do want to just briefly mention that as of March 2020, this new interface, I believe, is going to be the default interface for analytics within Canvas. So we have a lot of links that are on the activity sheet as well if you want to drill down into some of these points about whether or not formula questions are the problems of formula questions or other different interfaces and ways to visualize student data. And Cliff, yes, sir.
I just played around with, your pointer is on it right now, the student analysis button.
Down
So have you looked at exporting any of those?
So yeah, so
Okay, and does that?
essentially that's what I have to do.
Okay,
Oh, yes.
okay. Because that does push out a,
Yep.
a CSV file that has at least, I think,
So then
ultimately.
like I just have to go like manually and look through. I just wish it was like, you know,
Sure.
I'm lazy. I just want it to
No.
be.
No, it's fine too. It's okay, you're lazy.
Like the
All-
summary statistics, like
Yeah.
maximum time spent.
Yeah, so it's just like every time you have to like, you know, it's not hard to do in Excel, but you just.
I gotcha.
And then just to pivot out of Canvas, similar to mention you just mentioned maximum time spent on something, I just want to also show within Kaltura, you can also see the maximum time spent watching, for example, a course that for a lecture capture. So if you have a 20-minute course lecture, you can, going back to the specific media itself, and please correct me if I'm wrong following these steps, this is just my own path to it. Going down into actions again, analytics, And you can see sort of here, obviously this is just a personal video that I've uploaded, but the number of plays, the percentage of drop-off. So at what point in terms of completion do people stop watching the movie? Is it before 50%? Is it after 50%? View time, I'm not sure if that would account for whether or not you double the speed. Or if you triple the speed and put on captions. I don't know. That assumes immediate, natural playtime. And then some things like likes and comments. Just to give you an example of where you can find this data to make it, I guess, so that in the future it can be for your own use. So far, so good. Have I lost any move so far? Right. All right, so we all passed the quiz. All right, so I want to give you another, similar to the example that I just gave you, another sort of discussion activity related to the idea of a playback. So you've uploaded this 20-minute lecture capture in Kaltura, and you're reviewing the media space analytics that we just looked at, and you learn that drop-off begins at 12 minutes, so people stop watching at the 12-minute mark. No one has communicated a technical issue to you, saying the Wi-Fi is down in the dorm, or my computer is overheating and it crashes, etc. So I'm going to give you a few minutes, again, at your table to think about this. Your gut reaction, put yourself in the position of the instructor. What do you immediately think and why? Is that your thought? Sort of a harder question. Is just knowing that drop-off begins at 12 minutes a sufficient amount of information for you to consider whether or not it's too long of a video? And then C, or if to question the student's motivation and participation. And if so, why? How would you adapt? And if not, what more information do you need to then move past this data point to make it actionable for your course? So I'll give you a few minutes to think about that, and then we'll go from there.
Are we doing groups?
Your table mate again would be great. Same people, same groups.
It's how you get your exercise.
I instantly blame myself. And 12 minutes to their board.
For I'm going into a 20-minute lecture.
They don't find it.
But why do you think
Standard.
I mean, it's a quiz. And I was just saying, like,
Or videos on YouTube.
What if it were a 10-minute
So
I don't probably would
that's
just take the same percentage that reduce the
I don't know if I would say that.
So,
This is the standard. I mean, you know,
That's hard to know.
Yeah, that could be also like the issue of
But I think.
So
I yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm speaking the same level of interest.
At least they're not far along. Yeah, so
It would definitely change how I'm doing it.
all my quizzes to just test on that last 8
before I would break them down, just smaller videos. I would put pop-up questions so you can know so you had something to interact with while doing
I'm like, okay, is there doing that either, especially when you I just want to make sure we're all interpreting the problem in the same way. So it's the same at 12 minutes into the 20-minute video, like, across all of the classes, across all of the classes, so if a student watches, so when I would do it 4 or 5 times, if they watch it 3 times, it's only going to get 12 minutes. It's like a pyramid style video.
You're drilled down.
I don't think that they would know. Yeah, just that was the same person. So I figured all the way through one channel, I don't know that they would get that.
When I read that, I wasn't thinking about the six students going back to the Some of them get through 1 or 2 minutes, some of them get through 5 minutes. In 12, that's what I
Right, and, you know, yeah, that makes sense. I can
As far
understand that
as yours,
interpretation.
if you have 100 people in class.
And they all watch the video twice.
Well, you'll know, if you've got 100 people in class and 300 views, then you know they've gone back. Not 100 people in class and 80 people.
Right.
That's a little just
Oh, wow. So, I mean, I guess for me, it's, there's not enough context here. I would need more information.
It's like you're in the kitchen.
More contextualize the data. It says like, so this is reading lecture notes thing. So this, I have 71
That
visits.
class is also
Is that completed video? Or is that just?
Yeah, why would 71 people visit that and only 20 play it?
setting low.
That's my assumption.
That's an assumption, though. I mean, you have to know what the actual definition is.
And drop off with it.
That's fine.
It's a 15-minute.
Why would
No, it's
65 students? Oh, I'm sorry, visits versus.
So 71 people got to the video, and only 22 watched.
Also, that's also the reason this person watches the
Right.
So that's
That's what I'm saying. It's not clear from the data.
That's a good point.
So, there's a way, if you have it, if you have it,
It's possible.
So one of the, just because we have 15 minutes left, I want to go ahead and move forward a little bit. The document that I'm now passing around is called The Appropriate Use of Data for Learning Analytics Guiding Principles. It's another document that has been produced and shared by Druid Academic Technology and others. And Sid, since you're not here, thank you. Would you mind giving us a little bit of context about this document, The Appropriate Use of Data? Part of your view as well. Could you give some background information?
So privacy is a big deal when it comes to learning analytics. The first fellowship that we had, again, these fellowships are really great programs because we hear the voice of campus. And the first group of fellows said, you know, there's some great opportunities with learning analytics, but we're also really nervous about how data is being used and what's the governance, who's supervising, who's managing this data. And so that, one of the recommendations that came out of that fellowship was to form a committee to actually to really talk about the ethics around using data for learning analytics. And so Kim Arnold, who is our campus lead for learning analytics, worked with Beth Martin, who's got a lot of titles, and she's in the School of Pharmacy, and she's a really wonderful woman too. But they co-chaired this committee that included a bunch of other folks, and they got together for an academic year and really talked and researched and looked at what other institutions are doing. This is new because a lot of, I mean, we're ahead of our peers in a lot of ways. A lot of institutions have implemented learning analytics and they haven't put together the policy and the governance pieces. So UW-Madison's being very deliberate and very careful around that. So out of that work that committee did, they came up with draft guiding principles, and then they did a lot of public venues, and they went to different events and talked to instructors and instructional designers and students and leadership, and they got feedback on them. So there was a lot of people that looked at these principles before they got approved and blessed and finalized in your last May. There's a link to a longer document that's on the Vice Provost of it's on the Vice Provost of Teaching and Learning, or on the Office of Data Management site, that actually talks more about the project, and it shows in-scope and out-of-scope data. But just this is kind of the cheat sheet version. So we're supposed to be using our guiding principles are that we use data for the benefit of our students, right? So it has to be a benefit to them, minimize adverse impacts, but we want to be really transparent about how we use data, and that we are careful around privacy So this will eventually turn into some sort of a policy. Right now, we only have FERPA that protects student data and the guiding principles.
Awesome, thank you. So from this sort of very perhaps problematic hypothetical, is there anyone that would use this data to do anything? Nazan, what was your conversation?
Well, I'm very self-critical, so I would instantly blame myself. That would be my gut reaction to say that the video is far too long, they're not interested, it's not engaging. But in reality, it could say something, or it would push me to think differently about the videos I make. So yes, I would use this.
Because of length and because of?
Length, content, I mean, maybe I need to strategize my way of making the videos. We were talking, I said, well, maybe if it's really important for me, for the students to watch the whole thing, maybe I need to ask my questions at the end of the video.
Yeah, or is there a way you can insert interactivity into the videos so that they make it to the 19-minute mark and then hopefully to the 20-minute mark in the end? Yeah. AJ, you had a really good point about sort of constructing a video in terms of content. Would you mind sharing that?
Yeah, so I was thinking, if I make my videos 20 minutes and they watch 12, then I'll just put all the important stuff in the first 12 minutes, knowing that that's like the habit. And then the last could be, I think you were talking about some pyramid scheme, but
They're not a scheme.
Pyramid scheme. I'm being funny.
Oh.
If you can explain,
That's funny.
Making money? What?
No, I was just
explain the
thinking from the
pyramid.
perspective of just a journalistic principle of the inverted pyramid, the meat in the top and then, the base of the pyramid at the top, and then the information at the bottom is not irrelevant, but it's not the most
Well,
enticing.
our group had the other ideas that if they stopped watching about the 12-minute mark, put all of the test material in the last 8 minutes.
But isn't that kind of disingenuous though?
And then well, it's disingenuous for the first
time
quiz, and then they all flunk and because they missed the good material.
And then they don't trust you ever again.
That's right. That's right. I mean, yeah. It's not about
Andrew, you did bring up a very interesting point about why play counts and play views could be misconstrued.
Yeah, so for me, the most that I would get out of the information that's on the screen is a reason to interrogate the data further, because I don't know, for example, if we have like a 300 student lecture, if there's 600 plays, and everyone watched the video twice, but just on the second playthrough, they only stopped at the 12-minute mark, for example. It's not, it's hard to draw any conclusions about my teaching, someone else's teaching, or how students are interacting with the media without knowing exactly what the definitions of the data are.
And if you are based off this data, I was a little slow getting to it, but those first 2 points of visits versus plays, what does that mean? Like, why would you ever visit and not play? Like, I totally misunderstood the number when I saw that. It's like, because at least one of the videos we saw 70 visits, but only 22 plays. Like, what does that imply? That's
You
weird.
can visit and maybe you get interrupted and don't even start playing. I mean, there could be a host of reasons why someone visits a page and not go through or get interrupted or have, maybe if there is a transcript, maybe they're like, oh, I'm not in a place to
Or
watch this.
I'm reading it, I'm going to read it as sushi,
Or no.
Well, also combining these ideas with transparency and in an attempt to think like my freshman and college daughter, if I knew that my instructor was looking to see whether or not I watched a video, what is stopping me from opening up my computer, pressing play, going and taking a shower and coming back? Right? So, absolutely. So this is where I have trouble with learning analytics in general, in that am I really getting truly useful data versus actually talking to my students and asking them questions and getting their immediate feedback in words.
The thing that scares me as well in that statistic is whether or not the instructor is holding a student that's watched the video 3 times to a higher standard of the student who's just watched once. And sort of, student A has only watched it, student B
And
is super engaged,
they
watches it the entire
actually
time.
more than
Right.
How do you know?
So maybe this was said earlier, I was drinking my coffee at the beginning of this conversation, but this is also like classic backwards design kind of thing too, like why does this 20-minute video exist? for what reason do you want the students in it? And have you told the students what you want them to get out of it? And is there, even beyond 12 minutes, anything that they actually should be hearing? Or is it just that I found a video on YouTube and I thought the first 12 minutes were great and never communicated that to my students, and now they're frustrated because they watched 20 minutes and I'm like, why would I do that next time? I'm only going to watch 3 minutes. So it's the communicating the objective.
Can I build on that with backwards design? Like, when you are thinking about this from a backwards design perspective, you ask, or what are my objectives, and then what is acceptable evidence that they've reached that objective? If the acceptable evidence is they watched 20 minutes of a video, then your learning outcome needs to be revisited, because that's then the learning outcome is watch this video.
Right. I've seen in some cases people even put together like little short study guides about a video. That here's this 20-minute video, and here's the 2 or 3 things I want to have you get out of it. And if segments 12 through 15 don't pertain at all, you can even have like a little study guide, like, you know, this piece is just if you want to watch.
If you're
this,
interested.
right? And then segments 16 through 20, I want to listen for X, Y, and Z. So they actually have a guide to navigate themselves through it as well.
Yeah.
Or make that the assignment.
Or make
Write
it-
a study guide.
Right.
Tell me which parts are useful and not useful. There's your analysis and synthesis and all of the other Bloom's cognitive stuff there.
Well, ultimately, it's more important that they know the information, not where they got it too. So,
Right.
you know, I don't really care if they watched the video or they learned it by reading on the web. I care that they can do this problem or.
Yeah, Bob's example over here was great with that, because he was saying he's got video media that he creates, but it's a supplement to something that he's already covered in the class. So some students have a reason to go in and watch it multiple times, and other students, they already know how to do it, they might not look at it at all.
James.
I will just say, even with all the caveats about data limitations, what it's saying and whatnot, you can at the very least get some interesting questions that you can then, the data can spark. So for instance, we were looking, Sid had pulled up a video that she used. We were looking through, because we're trying to understand that to Andrew's question, okay, what exactly does it mean by drop-off rate and whatnot? And we were noticing a whole bunch of the students were stopping 57 seconds of the video. And so if you see a pattern like that, then it immediately prompts the question like, that's interesting, maybe I should investigate more. Why is it at the 57-second mark of this minute 53 video, students stop, sorry, 51 seconds, exactly halfway through, students stop watching, like.
Or is it exactly twice the speed of, or twice the speed?
We're still waiting. I asked Dan if you watch it at double speed, how it counts. He's our counselor administrator. He says he believes that if you're watching at double speed, it still counts as the whole time watched.
Right.
But he's going to check.
And then I went in and I watched it at double speed, and I went back to check my analytics, and they hadn't updated yet.
Oh.
So Caltech Analytics is like, Dan did a community practicing last fall for us. He said they say their official data latency to refresh can be 24 to 48 hours.
Wow.
So don't expect immediate update. But he said it's not usually that long, but it is not going to be. So that's a really, really good point to mention.
So the big takeaway is you can waste a lot of time as an instructor looking at learning analytics and just get frustrated by it, right?
And there's some interesting questions and maybe some data that you can have that can help you answer that.
Or just be aware of what it's useful for and where you have to take it with some caveats.
And that's the question that we unfortunately haven't been able, or we haven't asked yet in the 3 minutes that we have left. How do you confront a student who has watched the video for 53 seconds? What do you say? Do you say nothing? And you are aware of that knowledge that this student, we talked about this earlier, you know that they're shopping online or something like that. What's the line between confrontation, discussion, and just forgetting about the data? You don't forget about it. Unfortunately, it's a conversation that we didn't really get really towards. But in the few minutes that we have left, I want to go back to the questions that were asked. Are there any other additional tools that individuals in the room that are using to collect data about student performance and mastery of learning objectives? John?
So Nazan brought this up. She uses Google Docs. And not necessarily for data, but that has the version history, so you can go back and see a timeline of who contributed what and how things sort of changed as sort of a wiki style thing. That's a lot of really rich data, unless they just copied and pasted it into a new document, and then it's just all by one person. But it's also time consuming to go through versus the page views or how many, what's the graph look like for how many video minutes were watched, etc.
Sure.
So there's a lot of trade-off as far as what
Time
analytics you
investment,
want
yeah.
and how much effort you want to put into.
And also for what purpose? Is it for better backup design, or is it for surveillance?
Right.
Frankly.
The surveillance is what I'm most concerned with, I think, and to Lauren's point, who cares if they watched only half the video or didn't watch any of the video? Does that show up in the project or problem that I'm asking them to solve? That's where the analytics sort of needs to take place, in my opinion.
Any other final thoughts, questions, comments, concerns? Just to let you know, at the bottom of the activity sheet, we sort of not really mentioned at all. 2 little details about sort of things or analytics projects that are in the pipeline. A lead display. You can get this information on the live version of the activity sheet. Clicking through these links will give you some more information about DESL and LEAD, which are also campus initiatives that I'm not that familiar with at the current moment. You can read up on some PowerPoint slides that are available there for more information. If you have other resources, suggestions, please add those to the activity sheet, maybe even after this lab. Just because you leave doesn't mean we've lost all contact with learning analytics. So if you could take the time to fill out a reflection sheet, definitely grab a refreshment and enjoy your beautiful hot day.
Awesome, that's right.
And if anybody's interested in being on the Learning Analytics listserv, we have some brown-based sessions and a community practice also. We'd be happy to have you at those events also. So just talk to me afterwards and give me an email. I'm happy to have you at those.
And also, I think the listserv is also at the bottom.
Oh, bless you.
Just
Thank
that
you.
listserv enrollment is at the bottom left of the second page of your activity sheet.
Yes. Thank you, JT.
Yep. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you.